Hello, everybody. My name is Charlie Clausner, and these are the virtual interview questions for the Rural School Leadership Academy 2022. I'm super excited to dive in. I have some notes here, so I might look down, but I do want to keep it like kind of casual and conversational. So I'll go ahead and jump in with question one that states, think about a time in the last school year when you experienced a conflict with a coworker, manager, or community member / parent. Briefly describe what happened and how you approached it. So for me, I want to acknowledge first and foremost that this last 2 years of the pandemic have really been a tumultuous one for all of humanity, and I know that's brought up like a ton of stresses, especially within our school settings and our world as a whole. So one conflict that arose that I was really aiming to reach with empathy was I assigned a project for my students this year. It was the first time I had assigned it, and I was taking pieces from the teaching tolerance social justice curriculum that talked about identity formation and allowing students to kind of develop and acknowledge their social identities. So talking about their home groups, talking about their friends group, talking about their family, which in Hawaii are Ohana groups. And also talking about their religious components or where they may have like sports teams. So I built this really great project for students to do called My Groups / Social Identities. And I had a parent reach out, and it was not so much a conflict, but she sent a great email that was like, hey, I just want to bring this up, that this might be a really difficult project for my son to complete because of the last 2 years, having it been during a pandemic. And essentially she was saying he couldn't find recent photos of him with friends because of our like social lockdowns, as well as not being able to connect with their family over the last couple of years. And so it was one parent out of my 68 students. And the approach that I took was to really treat this with a sense of empathy and understanding. And I was able to meet with the student and tell him that he could not turn in the photos, but do quick drawings of those groups of his life, because it had been a long time since he'd been able to really connect with his groups in that way. And I took this approach because I feel like at certain times, I don't want to make him not do the project and dishonor what I feel is right and what I feel was a powerful project. But I also want to honor and always uplift my families and my students. And so I really wanted to meet them halfway in this project. And it ended up being, the overall outcome ended up being, was that the student turned in a great project. It actually allowed me to build a better communication network with the parent. And also, when I find and connect with parents, it's a way for me to bring them in, and it's a way for me to bring them onto my team and our team to support their student. And so I was really actually able, and in looking back, it's kind of nice to have taken a situation that could have resulted in conflict if I had been really tough and said, no, he must do this. But instead, it was like a way to kind of bridge a gap for my student, my parents, and then get a great result from the student in general. So that was the one question. And then I switched up kind of the questions and their format. So number 2 says, explain one insight you have gained in your leadership in school / education as a result of the challenges your school community has faced throughout the past years. Boy, have there been a lot of challenges. It was one thing I used to say though before, is that I actually felt I was pretty forward thinking when it came to education technology. And so when the first round of lockdowns kind of came through, we didn't quite miss a beat. In fact, my students' achievement academically was right on par where it was normally, which was great, despite having the whole fourth quarter online for us. And one thing I realized in that though was that, and I totally embrace technology as a tool to leverage for our students, but maybe our school kind of jumped a little bit too far into the deep end when it came to relying on educational technology resources instead of continuing to build relationships, as well as build the proficiencies in our teachers and our parents and our students to be able to successfully leverage those technologies for student success. So that's one of the things that the challenges I've looked at too. I'm going to just check my notes because I don't want to miss anything. essentially, to have that relationship and those trainings first, and then the education technology is a really huge component. In that, we must also look at the tools that we are bringing into our school. So my school in particular serves 70% Native Hawaiian youth. And so we need to ensure as a school that we are delivering technologies, choosing curriculum that is not only going to speak to the academic standards, but also to culture, indigeneity, and empowerment of our very uniquely situated students here in the Pacific Ocean. Thus, the big insight from COVID for me was that when we do lose that ability to physically be present with each other and our students, we need to ensure that we are still continuing to build systems that encourage human relationships, connections, and ultimately justice and what's right for our students and our school. All right. That was my response for the second one. And the last one, I have the notes up here on my computer because this one is such a powerful question and one that I think about constantly and always try to reflect on. Essentially, it says in our LSA, we aspire to be a brave community committed to learning through an anti-racist lens and expect that living into that commitment will be messy at times. And we do not expect all participants to come into our learning community at the same place in their development. Where are you in your development as an anti-racist leader? And what would it mean to you to be a member of a diverse, brave learning community? And so this one is such a great question for me to really reflect on, and the notes that I've written and all the things that I've meditated on in these last time while going after this application is just, we just had a training like this at my school, and it allowed me to really reflect upon my upbringing. And I grew up in central Illinois. It was a very homogenous monoculture of white, middle-class rural America. And that kind of monoculture ended up stemming in me a lot of affirmations of who I was because I was successful in the way that that society saw success. So I was athletic, I was intelligent, I'm a white, I was at the time a young man, heterosexual, and I was incredibly supported by the community that affirmed, so many aspects of my identity. The teachers that I had, my community members, my classmates, my family, and the society that I knew elevated or brought to me an element of privilege. And I know, and I'm a product of privilege to the greatest degree. And while this has helped fuel my confidence and self-knowledge and identity formation, there was some part of me, and maybe while in spite of all those things, I knew that this was not right. And this was not how the rest of the world is allowed to see itself. Because I grew up in this system of white supremacy and patriarchy and classism and oppression, I knew that I was a beneficiary of those unjust systems and someone who came from where I came from and ended up being able to explore the world and see things beyond that monoculture. I knew that this just wasn't right. And so it wasn't until the beginning of my adulthood that I was finally able to really put vocabulary and study into not only naming these injustices, but working collectively to solve them. And thus, I have dedicated myself in my career towards justice in a way that as a white man, I can usurp and dismantle the systems of privilege. And I always aim to, and that's Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday today, but to bend that arc of the moral universe towards justice. So for me, to be a member of this brave, diverse community would mean both taking a back seat to ensure equity of voice in meetings and conversations, while also simultaneously speaking the truth of my life and who I am. I want to highlight my lived experiences while uplifting the voices of others. I want to be a part of this community because I know that would mean I would be able to lead as well as follow, to listen and to speak, and to meditate in peace and always act towards righteousness. And with all that said, I feel I am very cognizantly an ally, an advocate, and an anti-racist person, an educator. I do know I need to take steps to become an anti-racist leader in my community. And I also know that my work as an anti-racist person and educator is never done. My work as a human is never done. I have lived experiences of privilege that I mentioned, and I can only learn so much through reading, talking, and listening. I have so much to learn, and I humbly acknowledge all the ways that I have room for growth. With that said, I am committed to justice and righting wrongs, as I always have been. And that is one of the main reasons why this cohort really draws me, because I feel it is such a great platform to connect. My friends who've recommended this program to me say is the best professional development they've ever had. They still lean on their colleagues and classmates in educational leadership roles all around the nation. And especially when you lead and teach in small schools and rural communities, it's that much more important to have that professional learning community. So with that said, I am really excited, and I'm super humbled and I have so much gratitude and thanks for you all for opening up this application. I am looking eagerly towards the results, and I can't wait to hear back from you. Thank you for the time, and thank you for listening. Have a great day.